A regulator is installed to reduce that pressure. High pressure regulators should be located where they're accessible, right? And you must take provisions to install the vent outdoors. So for 5 pound, 10 pound, or 20 pound regs, it's really important that those regulators are vented to outdoors, and we'll talk about those reasons in a couple of days. Each of those regulators also should have shutoffs on high pressure side of the reg so it can be serviced, so valve upstream. Sizing regulators, same sort of thing. Take care when sizing regulators, but particularly with respect to inlet pressure. We'll talk about how to size regulators in greater detail in a couple of days. But here's some examples of the pressure drop where CSA mandates the government, just like the government says, 0 to 7 inches water columns, gas pipe systems must have a maximum pressure drop of 0.5. They say the same thing for high pressure systems, right? 2 pounds can either be 1.5 or 1. But 5, 10, and 20 pounds, you can see they must be 50%. So you can see it's very specific. Guess where this is also displayed? In the 5 pound table, it'll actually say this. In the 10 pound table and in the 20 pound table. So you don't have to memorize it, it's right there. What's the maximum allowable pressure drop for a 5 pound gas pressure system? 2.5 pounds or 50%, right? And that's mandated. That's the governmental body tells us that, so we don't have to worry about why, right? Because they say that. And again, when we do K, we'll talk more about regulators. We'll learn all about direct acting regulators then. So, let's size now. Now that we understand that, let's size a high pressure gas system. Does this look familiar to anybody? Yeah. Sure does, doesn't it? It looks like we did this in the low pressure. Looks like we did this in the 2 pound. And it looks like we're going to do it again here in the 5 pound pressure system. Draw a sketch, right? So in the real world, when we're out there, just draw what we expect to do with the measurements and all that sort of stuff. Put the pressures in there. For the exam, it's given to us. All the information that we need is going to be provided to us in a sketch. So we don't have to look for anything or create anything or dream anything up. You just have to find it on that sketch. This takes practice. Once we do that, we have to do the hardest part about gas pipe sizing, which is making sure we're on the correct table. And we find the correct table by identifying the type of gas, type of material, system pressure, and the pressure drop. Right? From there, in the sketch, it'll identify the gas supply, the piping route, the regulator locations, the appliance locations. The sketch also allows us to identify those different pressure zones. We've read this before, haven't we? It's almost the same as the 2 pound. High pressure zone, piping from the meter to the system reg, or piping between system regulators, because now we have the potential of going from 5 to 2, right? Exactly. Lots of times we might go 5 to low pressure right away, but we have to look at that and identify that, which we'll be able to do. This is the same too. Size each pressure zone separately. So don't go to the 5 pound table when you're sizing low pressure. Don't be on the 5 pound table when you're looking at the 2 pound system section. Right? Just stay within what the piping sketch identifies. All low pressure zones can be sized according to what we've already done, which is perfect. We already know how to do that. And the 2 pound systems can be done the same. So to identify the table, well, look at that. When we do high 5 pound, 10 pound, or 20 pound questions or sizing, it's exactly the same, isn't it? Does that not look exactly the same? Right? Type of gas, type of material, system pressure, and pressure drop. Guess where you find that? In the table identifiers. Yeah, there's 30 tables. We have to flip around quite a bit, but that's practice and that's being familiar. Then from there we would calculate the pipe size. Before listing the steps to size high pressure piping though, it's important to understand how fittings are allowed for in the calculations. So as discussed in D1, 6 factors influence the flow rate through a pipe. One of these factors is really relevant in high pressure systems, and that is the number of fittings. So in low pressure 2 pound, the table tells us it includes fittings, so we don't have to worry about it. 5, 10, and 20 pound pressure systems, we have to worry about it. Okay? And we'll talk about how we worry about it and how we address it in shortly here. So let's just talk about what that means, number of fittings, what that looks like, and how we determine it. Fittings and valves create resistance to gas flow. So most low pressure and 2-pound sizing tables allow for this resistance by including a reasonable number of pipe fittings in the table calculations. What's a reasonable number of pipe fittings?
Like 4.
I don't know. To me, it would be unlimited.
Yeah.
But anyway,